You ready for the Sharona?
Yeah, I'm gonna show my muscles.
For muscles, but
I think you are in it more than me.
do you want to be an animal?
It's up to you. It has an angle. It's okay.
I can make adjustments if you want.
No, it's your show.
Okay.
You do what you got to do.
I wanted to make it look like we're two,
Is the camera on?
Yeah, it's recording.
Oh, it's recording?
Mhm.
Yes.
Right, because we
Try
started
a
it.
little bit.
Okay. What do you think about helping promote Rashida's jewelry?
I don't care if you want to get married. If you're not, it's up to you.
I'll edit it out.
Huh?
Don't worry. I'm like, haha, look what Sharon said Rashida. Just kidding. I just wondered if you thought it was a good idea or not. It fits in with a lot of the stuff that I do, that style and that. I thought I could help her a bit. Okay.
So we are recording right now, right?
Yeah, but I'll edit it out.
All right.
Well, I'm going to do what I did with everybody else. I do a little intro, and I'll same here as Sharona. I'll let you introduce yourself. And then, do you want me to are you prepared? You have something you're going to talk about? Or do you want me to ask you questions?
No, I can talk. You can ask questions in the middle of it.
Okay, good. Now
like.
I'll just say, introduce yourself and go ahead and share your perspective on compassion.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm Amy with Be Radiant Inside and Out, and as part of the 21-Day Compassion Challenge, I'm interviewing individuals who have had compassion make an impact in their life or to hear their unique perspective on compassion. So today I have Sharona. You want to introduce yourself?
My name is Sharon, and I'm a local businessman in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I'm originally from Sri Lanka, so if you see my T-shirt, it says Sri Lankan elephant or whatever. There's a quick story I would like to share. I was going to an airport with my son, and I saw this T-shirt, and I got so excited because I was like, "Hey, I like orange, blue, red, green, yellow. Those are my 5 favorite colors." And then my son was saying like, "Hey Dad, there's elephants on it," and it was not even registering in my mind. I was like, "Wow, how could this be like the perfect red, perfect blue, perfect orange, perfect green, perfect yellow? How could this be? It's not even possible." And then he was like, Dad, elephant." I'm like, "No, son, just let me pay for this." And then I paid, and I'm looking at it like, "Whoa, it has elephants on it." And he's like, "Yeah, Dad, I told you it has elephants on it." So that's the story.
Well, you're very vibrant today.
I'm sorry?
You're very vibrant.
Oh, thank you.
So go ahead and share with us your thoughts on compassion.
Well, my thing is like a lot of times people are like, "I want to be compassionate. I don't know how," right? Okay. So I found that to be compassionate, there has to be 8 components, right? And I'm not going to use any Sanskrit or like Hindi words or something like that. I'm just going to say it in simple English words, right? The first component is kindness, right? In order for you to be compassionate, you have to have some kind of kindness that you have to practice towards humanity, right?
On a regular basis.
Yeah, and one of the examples I can give you is like, at one time I had to like wash my son's clothes and the bed sheets like 10 times. Every 3 hours or something, every 2 hours or something, I would go. He was having some kind of diarrhea, so I had to, but because I have compassion towards him, I was kind towards that situation. I did not yell at him. I did not blame myself or blame anybody else, like his mom, like, why did she leave me? Because I had the kindness, I was able to have that compassion.
Yeah.
Right? And then, in order for you to be compassionate, a very important component is joy. And when I say joy, right, it is hard for me to be compassionate towards you, Amy, if I don't have joy in my life because I'm bitter, and it's not just happiness, like I don't have any peace within myself. So it's really hard for me to be compassionate towards you. Like, and sometimes if you find a person that has joy in them, it's easier for you to be compassionate towards that person.
Yes.
And if both people have joy, it's even easier to be compassionate, right? And then you have like the what you call the inclusiveness or equanimity, right? I don't know if I'm pronouncing this word
Yeah,
correct.
equanimity.
Equanimity. What that means is like if you go back to that scene where my son was, like he's my son. Like your three daughters, they are your daughters.
Yeah.
They are part of you. But more often than that, as human, we only think about our family, friends, and um, our children, our spouses, but not everybody else. We don't include them, so it's hard for us to
So seeing everybody as inclusive and
inclusive, and then have that like wholeness, like what my neighbor does next door affects me, but I don't think about it. So it may be hard for me to be compassionate. But if I know he is part of me, he's in this neighborhood, this goes even beyond like spiritual. It's practicality, right? And if I believe like everybody in Fort Wayne has an impact on me, right? Everybody in United States has an impact on me, as a world, as a universe. We are all in this thing together, right? Having that belongingness, it makes it easier to be compassionate, right? And then there's a difference to me between care and kindness. Care is like you don't have, sometimes you feel that you have to take care of somebody. It's because you're child, right? It's a disabled person. You know that they're hurting and you care about them. You need to take care of them, right?
It's sort of like they're already your responsibility. So it's
Yeah.
not quite the same as kindness, where you would be doing it with just like anybody on the street.
Yeah, because again,
Not expected.
all these things are connected, right? The inclusivity and the equanimity is connected, because in order for you to have care, you have to have that because it's part of it. And then you see that person, like we tend to, like if someone falls, we try to help that person,
Yeah.
right?
At least we should.
But why do we wait till that happens, right?
Why do we wait for them to be in a dire need before we?
So typically, it's the human nature. We just wait. Like if somebody gets into an accident, right? We care, right? So we stop to see if the person is bleeding, right? That's where the compassion comes from, right?
Yeah.
And then we can have the compassion. But my thing is like, next time just think about, like, can we care before it happens, right?
Yeah.
Is someone, is
not waiting for bad things to happen to have a positive response, but just looking at how can I add to it, as opposed to waiting for there to be a deficit that we have to try and balance out and correct.
Yeah. So then there's this thing called a very important thing that people does not understand, which is like, if you want to be compassionate, or if you want to practice compassion, you have to think about like not hurting people, right? If a person is hurting, right, that's to me is the sixth component. The fifth component, right?
So not just doing nice things for other people, but also avoiding doing
harmful things, right? I had to think, if I don't do this, would it hurt him, right? You might say like, hey, I need some money for my car, right? And I'm not a compassionate person.
Some money for my
yeah. So yes, we can work this out. So you might say like, I need some gas, right? But if you're compassionate, you will think about it like, if I don't contribute to this person, they might drive without gas and they might get stopped, right?
Yeah.
Then you go back to the inclusivity, the equanimity and care and that kind of stuff. Because if that person drives away, there's three kids in the back, right? So now, you are relating to that, but
Right.
it's an important part of the hurt. So if you realize, like, when we are not compassionate, we have to think about it, right?
Yeah.
For me, not being compassionate, would that hurt this person, right? My parents used to be, my parents used to talk about this quote: if you don't share your riches with the poor,
Hmm.
they will share their poverty with you,
Mm.
right? So
Yeah.
that hurt comes from someplace else, right? Because you have all this money, you have all these resources, and you're not willing to share because you're not a compassionate person. You don't have compassion in your life, right?
Yeah.
And that person might do something crazy, right? And that's not good, right? So think about it: when you're not compassionate, right? Would they share their poverty with you? It's a very important question that you have to ask.
It's almost kind of like if like let's say you do see a homeless person and you decide I'm not going to buy that person food, or I'm not going to do that. It's not only just the effect of, well, you didn't feed them, but also sort of that extra effect of them, the unseen effect that you don't really
Mhm.
um, always take into account, of like them feeling like dehumanized and less
Mhm.
important, and less like they matter to
Mhm.
even have what they need to be able to step into a better place.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, because that comes back, like, some you don't even know, because that person, that homeless person, might have been hungry. All you had to had was like some compassion and buy food, right?
yeah.
Let's say that person went on for 2 days without hunger, right?
Hmm.
That person might punch somebody because their need has to be met,
Yeah.
and no one is filling it. What are they going to do? This is not a
And
fun situation.
eventually it comes out in some way
Mhm.
and affects everything.
So I want people to think about, like, the hurt and non-violence.
Yeah.
Like, would this produce violence because of me having no, non-compassion?
We can even think about like more immediately with like children, right? If
Hmm.
their needs are met, like you're gonna hear about it. Like, if you've kept them up and they haven't had their nap, or they haven't had their snack, and they haven't had their needs met, like you're gonna get that tantrum. Like
Oh
it's
yeah.
going, you're gonna have to deal with it,
Hmm.
right? And then what's our common response? Well, now we're gonna punish that.
Hmm.
But
That creates
to be,
another reaction.
yeah,
Hmm.
and more needs not getting met.
Hmm.
So the more compassionate we are
Hmm.
in that situation, I always like to think of it, because part of why I started the challenge is because somebody challenged my parenting.
Hmm.
Is I really like the example that if we went to a party together
Hmm.
and you decided I don't feel well, I want to go home. Like, I wouldn't start screaming at you in front of everybody and be like, Shroni, you're the worst. We got your shoes on
Hmm.
and we came all the way here and I never get to see my friends. And what are you doing? I'd be like, oh my gosh, okay, sorry guys, we gotta go. But with children, we're like, stop doing that. Stop, you're embarrassing me, Please just stop. Like, you'll eat later. It doesn't matter that you don't feel good, we really try to like force them into that situation instead of stepping back and thinking like in the inclusiveness like you're talking about. We kind of sometimes want to put like parents here and children here
Hmm.
instead of making them. I know you do a really good job with Zen with that.
Hmm. Because having him included, that, like, for example, that non-violence or violence, right? Like, for example, I have learned, if I pay attention to my son, right, and
Hmm.
if I give compassion, it comes back to
Yeah.
me. And if I don't, what's going to happen is, like, he might throw a tantrum, right? Heck, he might pee in the car, right? So that's violent behavior, right? And I don't want that violent behavior. So
There's a
think of
rules
it.
in here.
So think of the non-violence, right?
Yeah.
How do we avoid this non-violence, right? So the seventh, sixth one that most
Okay.
people don't recognize is celebration.
Okay.
Now you might ask, why celebration, right? Now, do you think if you are really grumpy person, is it easy for you to have compassion?
No,
No,
not
right?
usually.
So, like,
That's when you need compassion.
compassion, right? But if you are celebrating life, if you are celebrating people,
Mhm.
if you are celebrating that you have a house, you are breathing, right? If you are celebrating of all the blessings that you have, right? This year we are having fantastic weather, right?
Mhm.
What a blessing is this? Like, so you're celebrating. So I could tell you, like, Amy, come on, let's have a cup of tea, right?
Yeah.
And let's celebrate this weather, right? Now is now I could have compassion towards you. I could have compassion towards me, right? Because more often than not, what I find is people don't want to celebrate because they
Yeah.
believe whatever they receive is so small. So they're like, why would I even like celebrate that, right? But everything, if you are breathing, we should celebrate.
You're a huge proponent of like the micro celebrations.
Microsoft, yeah, because like there's no guarantee. There's millions of people. They just right now they did not take their next breath. They're gone, right?
Mhm.
So I believe celebration is a very important component.
Mhm. That's sometimes when I talk to people and they're really struggling with having self-love and self-compassion, is I always tell them to look for those small moments throughout the day where
Hmm.
they can celebrate, because we just sort of forget that wherever we're at there was a certain point in time where we couldn't do it. You're
Hmm.
writing your name on a piece of paper. Well, there was a time when you couldn't write your name and you couldn't hold that pen correctly and you couldn't stay in the lines and
Hmm.
so why do we believe that there comes a point in time when we can't celebrate that? That's not a good enough achievement anymore, that
Hmm.
we can't be excited about it.
Hmm.
If we when we look at children, they're excited about everything. They scribbled on a piece of paper like
Hmm.
this for the 100th time today. Look, I'm so excited,
Yeah. See, that's
and
that excitement.
yeah,
Then again, it goes back to the joy. The joy sometimes does not come when you don't know how to celebrate.
yes.
It's so important. But what we believe is like some stupid things to celebrate, like some sports team. I'm not saying, we're talking about
He does like
compassion.
sports, so it's not.
Yeah, but sometimes what we celebrate is like a team winning, right? I'm sure that's a great achievement, right?
Yeah,
Sometimes we celebrate we moved into a new house, right? Sometimes we celebrate, like a marriage,
but
right?
not waiting for those big events,
Yeah.
allowing yourself to celebrate in each
Hmm.
moment of life.
So I should rephrase. It's not stupid. What it means is like we wait for these long things to happen, and in the meantime we are bitter. We don't have compassion
Mhm.
towards the humanity. We don't have compassion towards our neighbors because we don't understand the small things as big blessings.
So, do you think that on some level we have to have gratitude to be able to
Mhm.
get to celebration?
Yeah. So gratitude. I'll come to it. Gratitude is my
Okay.
eighth thing, right? So
It all
gratitude,
ties together.
yeah. Before gratitude, I want to talk about good deeds.
Okay.
Like, what if you consider what you do is good deeds, right? Sometimes people think, like, my good deeds are going to church, my good deeds are going to the mosque, my good deeds are praying 5 times a day, right?
Mm-hmm.
What if your compassion is a good deed,
Mm,
right? So when you're
yes.
thinking about compassion, what about the good things that you do, right? And that you can feel happy about. That brings you peace, right? So if I cut my neighbor's grass, if it's too long, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good deed. And that person says that Sharona is a very compassionate guy because that was a good deed, right? If
Mm-hmm.
I help an elderly gentleman to cross the street, that's a good deed, right? And that's compassion, right? So you have automatic compassion that you don't have to even think about it. It's interesting, Amy, because I just was I was at the Y and I was talking to this gentleman. He's a very nice guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him about. I mean, I talked to him about this compassion challenge, and immediately he told me like, "Oh man, I'm not compassionate. I just like only compassionate thing that I do is like every Sunday I go to church and listen to the sermon and give tithing. Now I'm not discounting that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then I said like, are you sure? And then he's like, oh yeah, I helped this older lady move. I stayed later and help.
So he immediately goes into these
Yeah,
things that he's
and
not
then
even
he's
giving
like,
himself credit for.
exactly, he's like, wow, I do a lot of stuff. I can feel this jar. I can
Yeah.
really feel this jar, right? So I was like, yeah, Amy, like we started this, right? So a lot of times people don't even realize that. That's why I say like good deeds. Count those blessings that you do for other people,
So
right?
now, how is good deeds different from kindness?
Well, kindness is like you have kindness in your heart.
So it's
Sometimes
more of the emoting of.
you don't even have to do an action when you have kindness, right?
Mhm.
You can be kind towards people, but if you follow that with a deed that you don't even think about.
Right. So kindness can be more like someone speaking to you and you just respond in a polite way
Hmm.
versus someone's telling you what their need is and you say, oh, okay, let me help you with that. That's
Hmm.
the good deed.
Yeah, but a good deed to me was like even if the person doesn't ask, you just do it,
Yeah.
right? Because you believe that it's a good deed, right? You believe
And
it's
that comes back to seeing everything in the inclusiveness where
exactly.
what would you want done if
Hmm.
you were and seeing them as an equal person who needs that.
This is why it's so important that all these things ties together,
Mhm.
right? And the last thing that I want to talk about is I like to use the word appreciation, but some people call it gratitude,
Okay,
right?
why do you call it appreciation instead of gratitude?
Because it just sounds good to me. In a way, appreciation is like you have to have an appreciation for things to feel gratitude.
You have to appreciate it before you can be grateful for it.
Yes. So I would say that it's a two-part appreciation, gratitude, right?
Mhm.
But I think it starts with appreciation, right? You cannot have gratitude if you don't appreciate it, right?
Yeah.
If you give me the world's best ice cream that was ever made, right? It is not easy for me to have gratitude without having an appreciation.
Yeah.
You can keep telling me, Sharona, that's the world's best ice cream, but I say like, Amy, that's all cool, but I don't like ice cream, right?
Yeah.
Or I would say like, I'm not even gonna try it, right? But if I eat it, then I'm like, wow, I didn't think I like ice cream, but this ice cream is great,
You
right?
should always listen to Amy.
No, true. So, so now I'm already shifting, right? So having that appreciation, like the reason that I like to use appreciation is, um, there's a guy who was in our neighborhood. His name is Mano Mystery, right? He brings us food all the time. This Indian food is so delicious, and this guy stops by
Mhm.
and gives us food, and all of a sudden my mind changes, right? See,
Yeah.
now he did a good deed. We didn't ask for the food, right?
Yeah.
And he finds joy in himself because
You brought the food.
he bought the food. He's happy. I'm happy, right? Now he did this out of kindness, right?
Yeah.
See how all these things ties together,
Yeah.
right?
He saw
And
you as being
yeah,
included, and
and
so
I'm
he would want
included.
to.
That the
Yeah.
inclusiveness happened, right? And he cared to walk all the way from his house and to prepare
Yeah.
these things with immaculate attention to bring this food, right?
Mhm.
And he does not practice hatred, hurt, or violence because
He
by
doesn't bring the food and throw it in your
throw it
face.
in your face. Okay, no, even more than that. Like because he's not even thinking about that, but this is not
Yeah.
really related to this thing. So then he's celebrating because when he brings this food, right, we are having a celebration. I'm like,
Yes,
Mr.
I got
Mano,
good.
this is good. I'm so happy that you got that, and he's happy. So it's only two people. Sometimes Jessica, I mean, he's mostly Jessica's friend, right? But all three of us are celebrating because there's a celebration, right? And then comes like his good deeds. He's like, I'm doing this because you're my neighbor. It's a good deed,
Yeah.
right? So he's bringing this and he's sharing part of his culture and that food. He's so passionate about
Yeah.
this food that he has, right? And then I have an appreciation for it. I'm like, this food is made so good. Now I'm thankful, right? And
Yeah.
I'm not even liking vegetarian food. These are all vegetarian food that he brings, right? And I'm thinking like, how could vegetarian food be this good, right?
Yeah.
So then I have an appreciation, and this man, it keeps giving, right? So I see his like kindness, his generosity.
So it creates a feedback loop, kind of like you were talking about before. It's easier
Mhm,
to be compassionate with somebody that you see has joy. So the more that it's well received, and he's sort of cultivated all of this in
mhm,
you, it came from him, he cultivated it in you, and
mhm,
then it creates that feedback loop where he's like, I want to do more of that. I
mhm.
want to keep that going.
Yeah. So that's why I say, so I want to emphasize one by one,
Okay.
right? The first one that helps compassion is kindness,
Kindness.
and then is joy, right? And then inclusiveness or equanimity, right? And then care, right? And the next one is like non-violence. Like think of what kind of violence or hatred or what can create if I don't follow with the compassion,
Mm.
right? And then,
What are the consequences?
well, yeah, what are the consequences that could be bad, right?
Mhm.
And then think about like celebration. Like, do you have celebration in your life, right? Do you want to celebrate with people, right? And then think about good deeds, right? And lastly, and not least, think about appreciation and then come to gratitude, right? So I was showing Manu's example. So when you guys are thinking about your compassion, don't discount yourself. You're already doing a lot, right? Be aware, be mindful, right? Give yourself credit. It's okay. Celebrate. You don't have to be a grumpy person, right? Through this compassion challenge thing and saying like, oh my gosh, what did Amy got me into, right? Now I had to be compassionate 21. That itself defeats the purpose,
Yeah.
right? The whole idea of this is for you to find peace because there is no value that you can put to peace in your heart.
Yeah.
That you get up in the morning, you're happy, you move on, you associate with people, and then you make things happen. Your children appreciates you, your co-workers associate that you associate, the people that you work with, people that you do business with, they appreciate. There's no value that you can put to that because that happiness
Mhm.
and things are not breaking apart where you keep on asking, why me, what have I done to deserve this,
Yeah.
right? So my challenge to you in these 21 days and beyond, if you can, is be kind to yourself. This is not a heavy task that you had to beat up yourself with, right?
Yeah.
This should flow like a river, right? It should have an easy path and do the best that you can, right? Including myself, I'm talking to myself here, right?
Yeah.
Do the best I can. So this compassionate 21 days challenge doesn't have to be you get up every morning and say like, "Oh my Lord,
How
what did
could
I
I
sign
break
up?"
my back doing nice things
Yeah,
for other people?
or don't think what other people think about you, right? Because this is something that you do. Amy is not keeping the score.
Nope.
Your neighbor is not keeping the score, right? The only person who's keeping the score is you,
Yes.
right? You, the person who's watching this video, that's the only person who's keeping the score, right?
Yes.
So be nice to yourself, and I challenge you not just be compassionate towards other people,
Mhm.
but please be gentle and compassionate towards yourself in these 21
Absolutely.
days, right? Did I miss anything, Amy, or do you have any other
No,
questions?
I just want to add, like, I think this is really good. I want to make another video on this, but um, using this kind of as the layout and maybe some sub rules to the challenge of, because I've had people sort of say, well, like you're saying, the guy at the gym, well, I don't do that much, but then as I start talking to him, it becomes, well, actually you do stuff all the time, and not thinking of it just as the good acts, but every time you feel kindness in your heart, kindness towards a person, cotton ball or whatever you're using to measure with, every time you feel compassion, because, like I always talk about, it starts in us and it radiates out. So the simple fact of like, if I'm in a grumpy mood and Sharona's sitting here just being all loving, all kind, all compassionate in his heart, and I'm just dumping. I'm just, all these things, all he has to do is just sit there and listen in that state. And over a period of time, it will start to, come my way. It'll start to, as I make space for it, that can be just enough. Just holding space and and kindness in yourself can be enough. So give yourself points for that. Give yourself points for the compassion. Every time you feel joy and you share that joy with someone else, give yourself points for that. It doesn't have to be just good deeds. When you do good deeds, do that too. Every time you didn't necessarily have to include someone and have to see them in that equanimity, give yourself points for that. What am I missing?
Celebration.
Oh, celebrate. Every time, don't just celebrate little things, because that's really a way of, you can celebrate with people. It's a lot easier with kids. We go, oh my gosh, you drew a picture again. We get so excited with them. Or right, oh my gosh, you found a rock, or you tied your shoes, and we have these little micro celebrations with them. But if you don't have kids, first of all, give yourself points for that. Like if you're a parent, you're taking the time to micro celebrate with your kids, give yourself a point for that, or you give yourself a cotton ball. But if you don't, and you're just kind of doing this on your own, celebrate those things. Did you make a healthy meal choice? Celebrate it. Anything that you're doing that's an act of love to yourself as well, take time to celebrate it. And, give yourself a cotton ball for loving yourself. Give yourself a cotton ball for celebrating it. Give yourself a cotton ball for the fact that it created joy and it made you more kind. When you really start to think of it in a bigger, broader way, filling the jar is not really that difficult. It's really more about cultivating the mindfulness of, where does the compassion come from? How is compassion all around us? How are we really using it? And taking that time to be in touch with that and live more in that space and just make it part of your just daily existence.
And I want to also add that a lot of times people think doing good deeds is the only way of compassion.
Yes.
But it's not really, because if you have kindness, people see. You can't trick these things.
Yeah.
Like if you have kindness in your eyes, have you ever wondered, sometimes you see a person and say like, that lady is so kind, right?
Yeah.
And
like
she's
you've only
giving.
been with them for 5 seconds.
Yeah, and that's giving.
Yeah.
That's compassion. You say like that mother's eyes when she's looking at the children is so beautiful. That breastfeeding or whatever that they're doing is so beautiful. That's an act of kindness. You don't even have to. It's not even a deed. It did not even happen. But you observe, right? So today and beyond, what I tell you is like, observe these very little things, right? Those celebrations, those carings, those act of kindnesses, and that joy that's around, right?
Well, and don't we have a tendency to think it has to be something where we're going above and beyond in some way. Have to have met a goal. But even here, Sharona is talking about care. Like if you have someone that you are in some way responsible for, it doesn't mean you have to do something else. That alone is enough. The fact that you have that care, you have that responsibility, and you do it, even if you fail a little bit sometimes, or you aren't your best. The simple fact that you care enough to make yourself feel bad afterwards, give yourself a cotton ball. Yeah. And also, I told someone earlier with the nonviolence, sometimes we have a really bad day, right? Sometimes we're like, I didn't do anything nice today, right? But maybe you spent your whole day just kind of tempering yourself to not have a worse day on someone else's dime, your boss is you're messing everything up, or your kids are having tantrums, or your spouse or whoever is upset at you, but you choose to let them be in the pain they're in and hold a compassionate space and not be like, well, actually I quit, it's all your fault, or yelling at the kids or telling your spouse, I don't care anymore. You choose to just not make the situation worse. Give yourself credit for that, because that takes a lot. You know, I think sometimes we really play down what it means to like to have that to do the emotional work sometimes for other people, you know, because it goes unseen. So make sure you're giving yourself credit for any way that you are doing the emotional work. Like, not only did you do this act of kindness or, you know, this good deed for someone or took care of someone, maybe it was really emotionally challenging to do it for to get the shoes on the toddler who's having a tantrum, you know. Give yourself an extra for the emotional work, you know.
But sometimes I think people don't even appreciate, like, you know, I want to be telling people who cook for their kids and husband or spouse every day, right? That's an act of compassion, right?
Yeah.
Do that with purpose, right? And appreciate that you do. And people who benefit from that appreciate it, right?
Yes.
Go wash the dishes or something, clean the room, and be appreciative. That itself is contributing towards this compassion. And give yourself, put a cotton ball. These are no simple acts, right?
Yes.
There are some people who never get a meal cooked, that they, like, they don't have a person who will never cook them a meal for a very long time, right? There are people who cannot cook a meal for somebody else because they are disabled or they don't have the resources to
So
do
being
so.
appreciative of the opportunity to
Opportunities.
even do these things.
I mean, yeah, and then you're already doing. Be appreciative and be conscious about things that you're already doing.
When you find yourself in a state of gratitude or appreciation, cotton balls.
It's the cotton ball time.
Cotton ball time. I think I said pom poms in another video. Whatever you're using, acorns, I don't know, seeds, nuts, whatever it is. Show us your pictures. Let us know what you're using. Well, do you have any other words of wisdom you want to leave us with, Sharon? I think those.
No, that's about it. And then if you want to know more about this subject, right, contact me through Amy's website, and I'm on a lot of social media, so she'll put my name on it. Connect with me, and I'm not doing this to sell you anything or anything like that, so I don't need to give you a website at this time. And you know, I'm not saying doing business is a bad idea, but get to know me, get to know Amy, and let's create a community that has happiness and, you know, spiritual development, rather than just talking about stuff and not taking action.
Make it happen.
Let's make
Take
it
the
happen.
action. Okay, if you are not completely familiar yet with the 21-day compassion challenge, you can go to the website below and watch the video, get the rules. You can join the Facebook group and show us your pictures. Let us know what was the most impactful, compassionate thing that you witnessed or did or heard about, you know, that day, and show us your full jars. All right, thanks for joining us. Talk to you soon. Good job, Sharon.
I